single voice speaking out in courage and in truth. When joined with others in unity, becomes the voice of liberty, a mighty joyful spirit lives anew.
A single child born to gentleness and care can design with other children carefully a world of peace and dignity in celebration of humanity. The precious gift we share. The precious gift we share. Sing, sing.
Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the Universalist Unitarian Church. My name is Lila, and I've been a member a long time. Since 1858, 𝗔𝗹𝗪 𝗦ശി𝘂𝗹𝘀 has served as a vital voice for liberal religion in central Wisconsin. We are an intentionally free society that welcomes all people, just as you are, regardless of age, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or economic situation. Wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I'd also like to give a special welcome to any visitors that are here. We have refreshments in the atrium after service, and we hope you'll stay and meet some of our fine congregants. Sundays, we also have a program, and you can find out about their classes and events in our church news or Facebook page or the Instagram. Please check that out. I have a few announcements that I'd like to draw your attention to. They're listed in your bulletin, but for those of you who are listening maybe from home, we are seeking submissions for our Lenten booklet. The season of Lent is fast approaching, and this year we're creating a Lenten reflection book. We invite you to contribute for this special book that will have themes of reflection, renewal, and spiritual growth. For further details, please check on our weekly newsletter or church office. In August, we organized a donation drive for the peanut butter and jelly family, or peanut butter and jelly drive, I guess, to support family radio. They collected an impressive total of 6,000 pounds of peanut butter and jelly, and it was enough to make 95,000 sandwiches. That's a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Also, our church is committed to serving the community by providing meals, and our last community supper volunteer opportunity is on Sunday, November the 3rd. We need volunteers to help prepare the meals, pack the food, and distribute them to drive up customers. We typically prepare around 100 meals. Please contact Marcia Fitzgerald if you're able to help. As we begin our worship together, let's take a moment and extend peace and blessings to one another. Please rise if you can and greet your neighbors. Dear friends, let us gather our hearts and minds for worship. Please join me in reciting the chalice lighting. It's listed in your bulletin. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 128.
Good morning. It's nice to see you on this lovely Sunday morning. I thought I'd start with a you fill in the blank for a story for all ages this morning. You finish this sentence if you know how it ends. Let me think of a good sentence to see if you can fill it in. From dust thou art to dust. That's right. This is good. Is good. What about don't touch that heart, that achy, breaky heart? You all did better. So anyways, clearly we have a lot of Billy Ray Cyrus fans in the house. Just thought I'd see how that's going. Anyways, this morning the church gathers to celebrate is All Souls Day. And we live in a culture that really sort of anesthetizes death. We hide it away in hospitals. We don't really talk about it a lot. Maybe on Halloween time we talk about it. See ghosts and ghouls on people's front yards or on their porches. But if you've ever been to like Boston, Massachusetts, or Concord, New Hampshire, or some of the old cities in New York, and if you go to the cemeteries, even the cemeteries themselves, on the top of the headstone, what do they often have for those of you who've been? I'll tell you if you don't remember. They often have skulls and crossbones, right? If you've ever been to Boston, Massachusetts, one of my favorite cities, right on the Boston Common, you've got the lovely Arlington Street Church, you have the lovely Boston Common, you have a Starbucks, and then next to it is a graveyard of things, right? You go get your coffee, and then you go mingle in the graveyard, and you see, Mother Goose's grave or whatever you do. So on All Souls Day, what we do is we think about the people who've impacted our lives, people who are now dead and gone. How many of you, by showing of hands, have lost someone who you really miss? It is the great equalizer in this congregation, right? All of you love someone who you miss. Their memories through this hour are asked to be at the forefront of your mind, so you can think about them. They can be present in your hearts. So with that, this intergenerational service, I invite all the kids to just stay put. Here in the sanctuary, wiggles, little squeaks, they're fine. You're not going to throw me off, I promise. I can make it through it. But nevertheless, let's bless the children present or online with our children's song now.
The mission and ministry of 𝗔𝗹𝗀 is made possible by the generous support of its friends and members. You can place a gift in the donation plate as it passes by. You can also visit our website, 𝗔𝗹𝗀.org, to make a one-time or reoccurring gift with your credit card or debit card. Thank you for your support.
I'd like to invite everyone to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation. If you would, start by placing your feet flat, firm on the ground. Take just a couple of moments to come into our bodies. Take a couple of deep and full cleansing breaths. Close your eyes if you'd like. And let us pray. O Spirit of healing, when we came in to worship, we set our burdens at the door. And there's a pile out there tall enough to touch the sky. We see how many lives are imprisoned by power, hate, and greed. We see how many of us live with painful joints and aching heads and crushing tiredness, enough to keep us all in bed. We see stacks of grudges, mountains of unhappiness, hills of addiction and regret. But here, with all those burdens, with headlines like ours, with haunting images and cries, we remember the souls whose gifts of love and life have given hope to us and others, hope even when all seems lost. Help us trust that we are called to love each other and love the world you've brought us to. Help us, O birth and renewal. Help us to claim your promises of healing, justice, and mercy. Help us listen with new ears. Help us forgive. Help us heal. Help us serve and be served. And now let us call to and sorrows in our lives, and let us meditate in silence together now. Amen. Please remain seated for prayer hymn number 83, Winds Be Still. In just a moment, you're all invited to come forward. We have lots of candles on the altar. You can place a photo if you brought one or a memento. You can light a candle. I have some introductory words to this ceremony. It is said that the tradition of lighting candles for the dead dates to the 4th century, when ancient people would light candles for 40 days in honor of the departed. Jews customarily lit a candle on the anniversary of someone's death, which is prayed over and left burning for 24 hours. The Paschal candle is lit on Easter. Advent candles are lit each Sunday in the week of Christmas. Candlelight vigils follow national tragedies, and eternal flames burn in almost every country and every state in our nation to honor victims of war and violence and to serve as a reminder of the sacredness of human life. Everyone here has, or everyone here will, lose someone close to them. And so I ask everyone to come forward to light a candle or place a relic on the altar to honor someone in your life. Please come forward as you're willing and able now. Just now, watching everyone light the candles, and I think at this point, being this church's minister, I've seen every aspect of the service be translated in terms of service to the memory of someone. And what I mean by that, I'll give you a concrete example. Some of you have been here for a while, and many of you knew Margaret Karspecken, and some of you were very close to her. But for those of you who are at her funeral, and I know a lot of you here just scanning the sanctuary, if you remember at her funeral, what did her grandkids do for this children's song that's been sung here for ages and ages. They sang it in her memory, right? It's like every little part of a church service becomes a part of someone's memory, which is a blessing. And that's what is inspired in this morning's reading. I took the liberty of changing from Paul Kalanthi's book to I wanted to read a poem by Billy Collins entitled The Afterlife. I'm sure all of you have your own ideas about where you go when you die. Maybe some of you think you don't go anywhere but under. There are lots of ideas. And the poet writes this: while you are preparing, brushing your teeth, or rifling through a magazine in bed, the dead of the day are setting out on their journey, moving off in all imaginable directions, each with his own private belief. And this is the secret that silent Lazarus would not reveal, that everyone is right, as it turns out. You go to the place you always thought that you would go, the place you kept lit in an alcove of your head. Some shot into a funnel of flashing colors, into a zone of light, white as the January sun. Others are standing naked before a forbidding judge who sits with a golden ladder on one side and a coal chute on the other. Some have already joined the celestial choir and are singing as if they have been doing this forever, while the less inventive find themselves stuck in one big air-conditioned room of food and chorus girls. Some are approaching the apartment of the female god, a woman in her 40s with short, wiry hair and glasses hanging from her neck by a string. With one eye, she regards the dead through a hole in the door. There are those who are squeezing into the bodies of animals, eagles and leopards, and one trying on the skin of a monkey like a suit, ready to begin another life in a more simple key, while others float off into some benign vagueness, little units of energy for the ultimate elsewhere. There are even classicists being led to an underworld by a mythological with a beard and hooves. He will bring them to the mouth of the furious cave, guarded over by Edith Wharton and her three-headed dog. The rest just lie on their backs in their coffins, wishing that they could return, come back, so they could maybe learn a little Italian, or see the pyramids, or play a round of golf in the light rain. They wish they could wake in the morning like you did, and stand at a window examining the winter trees, every branch traced with the ghost of riding of snow. There it ends our reading. Have any of you ever read the book *ฎemon's Copperhead*? It came out just a few years ago. A few of you raised your hand. Ever since I read it on All Souls Day, I always think of this great scene in Barbara Kingsolver's book, *Ḍemon's Copperhead*, which, for those of you who haven't read it, it's basically a modern retelling of Dickens' *David Copperfield*. The book is set in present-day Appalachia, and it's about a hardscrabble kid who's orphaned after his mom dies, tragically, of a drug overdose. And so the scene that I find is when Ḍemon, the main character, Ḍemon's in high school, and he's at the funeral of his adoptive dad, Mr. Peggott. Is an old who's lived most of his life with a bum leg after a mining accident. And Peggott is one of those rare combinations of brains and brawn alongside patience and devotion. And he's certainly not perfect, but he's very decent. And so Ḍemon's sitting at Peggott's funeral, and he's totally shocked by how different Peggott's funeral is compared to his mom's. His mom's was sparsely attended. There's very little affection being shared, no reminiscing, all the stuff that makes funerals memorable, right? And so the minister who eulogized his mother, he didn't know her, tried as best as he could to give a heartfelt eulogy. It was impersonal. But this wasn't the case at Peggott's. It was filled to the brim with people. His wife, children, grandchildren, old buddies from the mines. And when the minister gave the eulogy, he told old stories from back when Peggott and the minister were boys, and they did things that you cannot repeat from a pulpit. And Ḍemon loved Peggott. And seeing everyone else at this funeral who loved him, it inspired Ḍemon to think to him, this is the kind of funeral I want. I want a funeral with laughter and good stories and friends and a pastor who really knows me. And even though he knows me, he still makes me sound better than I was. I expect many of us have had similar experiences. We go to a funeral, or you visit a dying friend, or you read an obituary in the Wausau Daily Herald, and it gets you wondering, you go, am I going to be so lucky? And I expect that most of us don't really do much with these thoughts. We don't do much with them because we're wrapped up in our own drama. We're juggling schedules, or we're trying to eat less or exercise more or get the bill paid in time so we don't have to mix kickoff for the Packers game, heaven forbid. And these are important things, don't get me wrong. But as a former hospital chaplain, I spent years and years in a level 1 trauma center, and I can tell you this from my experience of being with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people when they died. There isn't one person who on their deathbed says this, I wish I spent more time balancing the checkbook, Brian. No one says that. I also never heard one person say to me, I wish I watched more Packers game. No one said that to me. No one also said, I wish I ate more broccoli instead of chocolate. Words never uttered on a deathbed. As Andy Dufresne says in Shawshank Redemption, you all might remember this line, get busy living or get busy dying. Stephen King, who we refer to as the king of horror, he knows that while most of us aren't in actual prison, we're trapped in all sorts of other ways. And the simplest way to summarize this is that there is a human propensity to mess things up. And so that's why this congregation, if you go back into its archives, what you'll find is that this congregation used to start every single service, Sunday in, Sunday out, and they would rise together and they would ask in one voice for forgiveness. They would say, forgive us for the things we've done and forgive us for the things we've left undone. And it's a collective way to recognize that nobody's perfect. In 12-step programs, if you've ever been a part of one, imperfection is sort of a given. And knowing this, it's kind of easier to admit that without help, we'd all be lost. And that's what Ḍemon's said at his funeral, that a well-lived life is impossible without help. The South African Bishop Desmond Tutu, he liked to say this, quote, a person is a person through other persons, end quote. In other words, our humanity is possible because of other people's humanity. As Her Majesty Barbara Streisand sang, People who need people are the luckiest people. Of course, we know this, but as studies show, this is a study I just read, 60% of people admit to focusing on personal desires and material possessions over experiences with loved ones. Is that you? It's a 60% chance it is. There's a big difference between knowing what needs to be done and doing it. Despite knowing how important connection is, many of us still struggle with this self-interestedness, this self-centeredness. So some of you may remember the wonderful classic song by Carly Simon called "You're So Vain." For decades and decades, people would debate. They would say, who is this song about? At one point back in the 70s, Simon said that it was Mick Jagger because, of course, it could have been Mick Jagger, right? But she went on to change her answer about 50 years later in 2017 when she published her memoir, and she finally spilled the beans, and guess who it was? Warren Beatty, that son of a gun. That's who the song's about. So in case you've never heard the song, this is how it goes. You're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain. I'll bet you think this song is about you, don't you? In a word, the song's about narcissism. It's not the clinical kind that you need a doctor to diagnose, but it's about the kind everybody is guilty of. Being self-centered, doing things for attention, being entitled, having very little empathy, being alliance-obsessed, and so on. And even within communities like this, founded on shared values, it's tempting to fall in the trap of making everything about me instead of we. This stuff is everywhere today. Pretty much every social media encourages us to curate idealized versions of ourselves. Very few people are posting selfies with their favorite pimple, right? Reality TV is all about promotion. We talk about it like it's new, but the nature of humankind is anything but new. It's so old and so common, we have these old English colloquialisms that describe it. And you know all these sayings. My way or the highway. Me, myself, and I did it my way. I'm too good for this. Back in my day, we did it like this. I think things like funerals, things like All Souls, as they give us an opportunity to stop and consider that anytime we talk about a better path of living that only involves getting attention or getting thinner or getting more sleep or getting a better work-life balance, get rid of your crow's feet, you might stop and wonder whether you're drunk a little too deeply from the wells of self-absorption. Having said that, I want to encourage you that I think this is very natural to do. Sort of like a reflex, right? It's really natural to ask in situations, we just automatically think things like this. We say, well, what will affect me, right? What am I going to go get out of this? Or you hear about a new policy that a president proposes, and you go, oh, this isn't going to affect me. I don't really care about it. There's an old New Yorker cartoon about this feature of humankind by my favorite cartoonist in the New Yorker, 𝗔𝗹𝗀. And it's a sample of greeting cards from a company named Narcissists Incorporated. And here's the first card. It says, wow, your birthday is really close to mine. Isn't that amazing? And the sympathy card, it reads like this. I once had a sad thing happen to me too. End of card. And my favorite one is the farewell card that says, speaking of bon voyage, guess where I'm going? France. Of course, nobody sends like this, or I pray you don't send cards like this, but we act like it, right? Rather than listen in the conversation, we just wait for the person to stop talking so that we can tell our story, because we all know our story's better than their story anyways. Everyone likes to put themselves at the center of the story. And newsflash, church people, they aren't immune to this. And so way back in the day, way back in the ancient time, church used to write ancient versions of nonprofit consultants, like St. Paul, people like Phoebe, about how they can get church people to stop fighting over things like this. What's served at potlucks? This was a big topic in the ancient church. Or they also fought about what color of a bench they should buy for the atrium. I'm not joking. That one's a little inside joke for property committee. Anyways, this is a real story, though. There's an ancient story of a church that wrote for advice, and they got a reply back from St. Paul that basically said this, summarized the whole book of Colossians in 3 words. Are you ready? Yourself. That's the whole thing. But the letter goes on to say, God already told you what you're supposed to do, and you know it because it's that simple. Be compassionate, be humble, be slow to anger, quick to forgive, and be loving. And that's what people talk about on their deathbeds. That's been my experience. They want to talk about their regrets. They want to talk about the people they love. They want to talk about their moms. They want to talk about their dads. They want to talk about their kids. And this gets me back to All Souls. I bet if we could write the people in our lives who've died, all those people that we most admire, if we could ask them and we could say, what should I do in this tough moment? I bet most of the people we write, they would tell us the same thing that Paul told that church in Colossia. Say, first, get over yourself. And so every time I try and imagine what the people I loved would say, like I imagine my grandma, for instance, or Francis, who I worked with for a long time, or Sister Joyce, who I worked with for a long time, I always get annoyed at what I think they would say because I'm pretty sure what all 3 of those people would say is they would say, Brian, just chill out. It's often a trap. Wake up. Tomorrow's a new day. I'm reminded of a story about this couple, and they went to a funeral at one of those old country churches with a cemetery behind it. Have you all ever been to those churches? They're just outside of Wausau. And so at this particular funeral, the preacher would pound on the pulpit, and he would look over at the casket, and he would say, it's too late for Joe. It's too late for Joe. He might have wanted to get his life together. He might have wanted to spend more time with his family. He might have wanted to, but Joe is dead. He can't be saved. But it's your chance. It's not too late for you. There's still time for you. You can decide because you're still alive. It's not too late for you. Real heartwarming sermon, right? And so this couple, they get back in the car, and they're talking about it. And they're saying, that was an absolutely terrible sermon. I can't believe he said that. That was disgusting. And then the wife says to the husband, I've never heard anything like that in my life. Manipulative, it was disgusting, it was insensitive, and it was true. Because it's true. Now, this is not going to be an altar call or an invitation for you to quit social media. I'm not telling you to put your house on the market, have an estate sale for all your possessions, liquidate your IRA, and drive down Grand Avenue to Neighbor's Place or 5th Street to Good News and give all of your money and your away, but that would be cool if you want to do that. I want to be there. What I'm saying can be summed up in 4 words, courtesy of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Help, I need somebody. Or if you prefer your spiritual masters, take it from Gandhi, who said the same thing. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. And isn't that why we mourn the dead? Because we're not capable of living alone. Because what led them to us and us to them, it was all God's doing. It was God's, or it was luck's, or it was both. The people who've gone before us, the people who've become a guiding light, a quiet voice, memories of kitchen table conversations and laughter and tears and second chances and all those deep, dark secrets of ours, they died with to save us face. It's a gift. It's a grace. Today on All Souls, we're reminded of those who showed us, who call us back to our better selves. So the question is, how do we learn to live in the light of all souls? My advice is to live as people who cherish life rather than fearing what's slipping through our fingers. As people who are grateful for what we have rather than counting what we have. The reason we gather at All Souls isn't to grieve what we've lost, painful as it is, but to rejoice in what it means to be part of someone's life and part of life itself. Amen. I invite you to rise in spirit or body for our closing in the Gray Book, number 331, Life is the Gift of All. If you'll receive these blessing words, I invite you to reach out. You can take the hand of someone nearby if you'd like. If you're here alone, you can reach out with your heart. May the truth that sets us free and the hope that never dies and the love that casts out fear lead us forward together until the day spring breaks and all shadows flee away. Please have a seat. Enjoy the postlude.